Hello, everyone, and welcome to what I call the Nutrition Lab, the kitchen. This is where we make foods that keep us healthy, that can be our best medicine or our most dangerous poison, right? So, what I'm going to talk to you about today is some of my favorite therapeutic foods. Really, what I did is I just accumulated a few things that I had going on in my kitchen. We're going to talk about how we can take food and make it functional for our health, also known as functional nutrition. Now, I run a program called the Functional Nutrition Certification Program. And what we do in this program is we talk about how we can use food for healing, how we can take these wonderful things that we need for sustenance every single day and use them to not just give us energy, but to also keep us super healthy, to keep us vibrant, and to build our resilience. Isn't that what it's all about? Building our resilience so we can handle the stresses of every day. So I've selected a few foods here to talk to you about today. I mean, I could have just pulled out my whole kitchen, but I just chose a few. I mean, I could talk about this stuff forever, but we'll spend maybe, 10, 15 minutes, going through what I've chosen today. And just to give you a bit of an idea of how these things can be super healing to us, right? So I'm going to dive right into it. We're going to start with, I guess, one of my favorites. And the first one is garlic. So I think most people have garlic in their kitchen. It's a root. We use garlic to flavor a lot of dishes. You usually don't need too much to really get its potent effects or its potent flavors. And what I've actually found, over the years learning about different foods and their therapeutic effects is that roots are actually quite powerful. Why are they quite powerful? Well, if you think about it, this garlic clove or bulb has to sit in the ground, right? And it needs certain factors there, certain ways to protect itself from little things in the soil that want to eat it. If it doesn't protect itself, it's just going to get decomposed in the soil, and that's going to be it, right? So garlic needs to have some really strong properties, and so do a lot of roots. Some of our best medicines, we're going to be looking at one other in a moment, are roots, in fact. So our first one's garlic, and I just want to say hi to a few people. I see Holly has joined us. Roots and Reverie, and a couple other names that are quite long, and I don't know if I'll pronounce them properly. But if you guys have questions as I'm going along here, feel free to ask them. I'll try my best to get to all of them. So first one's garlic, and garlic has some of the most powerful anti-cancer properties. They've looked at a whole bunch of different foods to see what their anti-cancer properties are against prostate cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer, lung cancer, and garlic has always come out on top. Why does it come out on top? Because it's got these sulfur-based compounds which stimulate our antioxidant pathways in the body and really help us to protect ourselves, from the free radicals that might exist in our world. So this is like a super awesome support team for the immune system. And speaking of the immune system, they've actually used garlic in wartime when antibiotics weren't even available. They've used this to help stave off certain infections, to help boost the immune system. In fact, when I feel a cold coming on, especially upper respiratory, I'll take some garlic and I'll eat that, right? And it's one of the most powerful things you can find in your kitchen in a moment where you need that stuff really fast. So one of the most important things to know about garlic is if you want to increase its potency, you got to crush it. So you take 2 cloves of garlic, you crush it under your knife, give it a good slam. I usually just put it under and do one of those. And what happens is an enzyme known as allinase mixes with something called allein, and they mesh together and combine, and they make something called allicin, which is an active component of garlic, which has superpowers, right? So it's actually for the whole garlic and allium family. If you crush it and let it sit for about 10 minutes, it greatly increases its potency. So the first therapeutic food is garlic. And this is all what I'm talking about, functional nutrition. You know, some people ask me, what is functional nutrition? And my answer, the beginning of my answer goes like this. It's the opposite of dysfunctional nutrition. And what is dysfunctional nutrition? Dysfunctional nutrition is when we're filling our bodies with things that just give us calories, really, just keep us alive. But they're not really building our resistance, our resilience as well. So when we eat, we want to get not just the calories to sustain us, but we want to get all those wonderful chemicals that nature has created for us to keep us strong, healthy, our immune system strong and healthy, and to help us stave off disease and illness, essentially. And that's functional nutrition. Now, diving a little bit deeper into what functional nutrition is, it's using certain therapeutic foods to rebalance and bring function back to the body. And that's what we're talking about today. So the first one we're talking about is garlic. And I have a question from Christine McDonald. And she asks, does cooking garlic reduce the benefits? And the answer is yes, it does. Okay. So I spoke about how crushing it increases the benefits and can really release some of those medicinal qualities. But the longer you then cook it, the more you will destroy. Now, I think we all love the taste of a nice roasted piece of garlic. One of my favorite things to do is to take a whole bulb, chop up the top, put a little oil in, throw that in the oven for, 40 minutes, and it's just delicious. It's not going to have as strong of a benefit as if I just crushed it, put it in a dressing, and ate it raw. We use it different ways when it comes to culinary uses for these things. So, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Hopefully we get the full spectrum. But unfortunately, the more you cook garlic, the less of those active nutrients it has. Sorry for the bad news. Okay, the second therapeutic food we're going to cover today is actually two therapeutic foods, but they share a common phytonutrient. And the second group is tomatoes. Look at these beautiful tomatoes. I'm here in Toronto, Canada, and we're finally getting some good produce after a really long, cold winter. And I finally found tomatoes that are actually red and not like pale green or something. So we've got these nice, beautiful vine tomatoes. And I also found some organic watermelon, which is a nice change as well. Do any of you joining me live know which nutrient these two things have in common? And while you guys put in your answers, or just talk about what a phytonutrient is. Phyto means plant, nutrient, and different plants have different phytonutrients. Why are they there? They're actually the plant's pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, UV protection. Plants don't have any claws or legs to run away or bite back, so they need something to protect them from the sun, from other animals, from little bugs. So they make these bright chemicals known as phytonutrients to protect them in their environment. And the cool thing is that when we consume those, they help to protect us, and they also have an affinity for different parts of the body. So I see we got a few answers in from Nancy, the real Holly Monster. Holly, always giving us some good answers. Sylvia Roca, how's it going? That's great. And they all gave me the answer Lycopene. Booyah. So lycopene is that phytonutrient in you can guess what color it is, it's red, in our watermelon and in our tomatoes, and they have an affinity for the prostate. So when I eat this watermelon, or when I eat this tomato, the lycopene works to protect the cells of the prostate. It almost has like an instruction in the food, and it says, hey body, can you send me to the prostate? Now, for those women out there, it's going to protect other things as well. It's a very strong antioxidant. It's part of the carotenoid family. Carotenoids sometimes can convert into vitamin A, lycopene can't, but it's the strongest antioxidant out of all the hundreds of carotenoids out there. So It also has fantastic antioxidant ability. Now, if we want the most benefits of lycopene, especially from tomatoes, we want to eat them with a fat because it gets delivered to the body a lot easier. It's a lot easier to absorb. Usually people aren't consuming watermelon with fat, but they're consuming it after a meal as a dessert, so that counts too. So our second functional food here, therapeutic food, is watermelon and tomatoes, which both contain lycopene. It's another one that we cover in more detail in my courses. I run a full, for those of you who don't know, functional nutrition certification program. It's delicious. Full functional nutrition certification program where we have 5 courses as the core curriculum, and then some more advanced courses for those of you who are, if you're a practitioner and want to dive deep into client cases and whatnot. You can check that out at functionalnutrition.ca. Moving on, any questions coming in from you guys at the moment? Anyway, I'll keep my eye out for questions. Next one. Papaya. I recently found an organic papaya, which I was pretty excited about. We get papayas all year round, but they're rarely organic. And I don't know, is papaya on the Dirty Dozen list? It might be. I don't know. I have to check. Don't know that one off by heart. But one of the cool benefits of papaya actually has nothing to do with the meat of the papaya that most of us eat. It has to do with what's inside, and that is the seeds of the papaya. Just looking at a question that came in, which I will address in a moment. So the papaya seeds actually have anti-parasitic activity. That's one thing that they do. So when we open our papayas, we don't just eat the meat of the papaya. We also consume the seeds. So sometimes we'll use some in a smoothie, or we'll just eat it straight up. We'll save the seeds. Those will go in a smoothie as well. That's one use for the seeds. Another use for the seeds from a papaya is as a black pepper replacement. Yes, a black pepper replacement. They actually have a little bit of a bite to them, a little bit of a spice. And what you can do is you can take the seeds, you can dry them out, and then you can use them like you would black pepper. My wife, Megan Talpiner, has a black pepper allergy. So that's something that can be used as a replacement for someone who has that allergy. Now, going back to our tomatoes, I had a question from Kathy. Is it correct that tomatoes should be cooked for the highest lycopene delivery? Yes, and I did mention that. Oh, no, I did mention the fat part. But yes, if you cook them, it does make the lycopene more what's called bioavailable. It's not just about what you eat, it's about what you absorb too. So yes, great question, and thanks for bringing that up. So the seeds, great anti-parasitic activity, and also it's got some bite for a pepper replacement. Okay, moving on to the next functional food. This is functional nutrition, people. It's not just about what you eat; it's about what it does in your body. So this is powerful information. This is the original medicine, right? Back in the day, people didn't have access to drugs. A lot of them didn't have access to the herbs that are available from around the world. Like, you know, here where I live, you could get Chinese herbs easily from many different places. You can get Western herbs, you can get Eastern herbs, you can get so many different things. But the most ancient form of medicine was, and I think still is, food. So what we're talking about here is lots of stuff that most people can get and that most people have just in their kitchen alone. So the next one, which I've written about and I've spoken about many, many times, is this wonderful spice here. Take a close-up. Look at that beautifulness. And we were just talking about phytonutrients a moment ago. This is like the ultimate phytonutrient. Like, look at the color of that. I was working with turmeric yesterday, and my hand, like one of my hands, are still yellow. I was getting turmeric everywhere, and that's a very powerful chemical in there, known as curcumin. Curcumin has extremely powerful antioxidant activity. In fact, turmeric is really great to pair up if you're consuming any meat that's cooked, because when we cook meat and we heat up the fats in the meat and the proteins, especially when you're barbecuing, what you can create from that process is called trihalomethanes. Oh no, sorry, that's a different chemical. Benzopyrenes. There's so many of these different chemicals in our environment. Benzopyrenes get created, and they are carcinogenic. They are cancer-causing. That's what carcinogenic means. So turmeric can actually quench the benzopyrenes to make sure that they don't damage the body. How cool is that? So when you're consuming any type of meat that's cooked, you want to make sure that there's some turmeric involved so you can get the benefits of the meat, and you can get the benefits of the spice as well, help to protect you. So turmeric, very powerful antioxidant. It's got that curcumin in it, and it's a very powerful anti-inflammatory. Okay, so it helps to bring down and silence some of the inflammatory pathways in the body. Lipooxygenase, cyclooxygenase slows some of these enzymes down so that the inflammatory process doesn't happen so acutely. And of course, inflammation is associated with every single condition out there, right? It's a key player in disease. Inflammation is one of the first steps. So we also know that turmeric, curcumin, the spice in here, great antidepressant. In fact, they've done studies where they use antidepressants and they use turmeric, and turmeric does quite well. Why? Because it's an anti-inflammatory, and we're starting to learn that depression can actually be due to inflammation. We go into this in great detail in my mental health and neurology course, all part of my functional nutrition certification program. We talk about how tryptophan, instead of going down the serotonin pathway, can be shunted to something called the kynurenine pathway, which is prompted by the inflammatory process. So we want to eat lots of turmeric. Now I see there's a question from, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce your name. I apologize. Aaron? Maybe it's just Aaron, spelled in a different way. But do we have to eat turmeric with black pepper? I've read and heard that to make it bioavailable, we need the combination. Yes, absolutely. So again, it's not just about what you eat, it's how you eat it. Black pepper, there's a chemical in it called bioperine. And bioperine helps with the absorption of some of the key components in turmeric. Fat will also help make turmeric and the components in it more absorbable. So if you're making a dish, you can put the fat in the pan first, put a little turmeric in, and get that to mesh and meld. Also, lecithin can help with the absorption. And then in supplements, what they do a lot of the time is they micronize the turmeric. They make it into very, very small microscopic particles to allow for its absorption a lot better. Okay, so that's a spice. I mentioned earlier when we started with garlic that we were talking about roots and how powerful roots are, because roots have to protect themselves in the soil. Turmeric is also a root and one of the most powerful spices on the planet. We consume a lot of it. Okay, moving to the next one. I've got them in a jar. This is a prune. Anyone know what fruit a prune is? A plum, of course. So a prune is just a dried plum. And you might be thinking, well, Josh, what are prunes good for in terms of functional nutrition? Prunes are very high in boron. And boron is a key mineral necessary for converting vitamin D down the pathways in the body to make it a much more potent form of vitamin D. So when I go out in the sunshine and the sun hits my skin, I make something called cholecalciferol, vitamin D3, and then that goes to the liver and it gets converted into something 5 times more potent. And then it goes to the kidneys and gets converted into 1,25-hydroxy vitamin D, which is 10 times more potent. Now, the process of the 25-hydroxy vitamin D from the liver to be converted in the kidney to 125-hydroxy vitamin D requires certain cofactors. And boron is one of those cofactors, and it's very high in prunes. So who knew? Prunes can actually be used to help with bone health. This is functional nutrition, people. This is how we use food for healing and for keeping us strong and healthy. So they've done studies and looked at that conversion from the final step for vitamin D to be converted into 1,25-hydroxy vitamin D in the kidneys, and that can be the deciding factor between someone who has osteoporosis and someone who has strong bones till the day they die. After the age of 30, your bone density declines very slowly and gradually. That's fine. That's a normal part of the aging process. But if we start with X bone density and go at a steeper slope, we're going to get porous bones to possibly a dangerous level a lot faster. And that's the process we want to slow down. And we need all those cofactors. Vitamin D is critical for incorporating calcium into our bony structure. It's like the activator. But we also need lots of other cofactors, vitamins, minerals, to make sure all that process works properly. It's fairly narrow-minded when people think all we need is calcium for bones because bones are made up mostly of calcium. That's like saying, hey, I'm going to build a shed in my backyard. All I need is 2x4s. Go put a pile of 2x4s in the backyard, and I'll build you your shed. It's way off, right? You need nails, you need hammers, you need people to do the work. You need a measuring tape. You need lots of other things, cofactors, to put that all into place. Okay, so we're going to get to our last functional food. I know you saw that really quickly. These are all things that we cover in detail in the Functional Nutrition Certification Program. Also in the Functional Nutrition Certification Program, we dive deep into specific body systems like digestion, mental health, the endocrine system, thyroid health, digestion. And we also get into supplements in great detail in actually our first course. It begins in September, called Therapeutic Nutrition and Supplements in Practice, where we give you an amazing toolkit on how to actually use a lot of those things you see in the health food store. Okay, moving on to our last functional food or therapeutic food. It's a lime. And limes are, first of all, very high in vitamin C. That's why sailors are sometimes called limeys, because back in the day, when sailors would sail the ocean blue looking for new lands and go out for long periods of time, weeks, a lot of people would die. Why would they die? Well, first, their teeth would get a little bit loose, their gums would bleed, wounds wouldn't heal, their immune system would take a dive. They would just get sick, bleed out, and eventually die. It wasn't a good situation. Someone finally discovered that it was due to this thing in fresh fruit that they were lacking, vitamin C, and they named it scurvy. But sometimes sailors are called limeys, and that's because they discovered when they gave them a whack load of limes on their journeys, they didn't get this disease. So lime's super high in vitamin C, but more potent is actually the outside. You know, in some recipes, they ask you to zest a lime or zest a lemon. That zest on the outside has super powerful anti-cancer properties, okay? And it makes sense because a lime has to sit there in the hot sun, being exposed to UV radiation every single day, all day, and it needs something to protect itself with. So it creates these phytonutrients, which we spoke about earlier in our cast today, that protect it. And again, when we consume those, it protects us. So oftentimes, when we're looking at specific foods, limes, tomatoes, whatever, even watermelon, we were talking about watermelon. Did you know that the outsides are edible? So you can actually eat them straight up. They're a little tough. Or you can throw it in a smoothie. You can also eat the seeds of watermelons, which are very high in magnesium. And magnesium is one of the top minerals people are deficient in North America. So the zest of a lime, super, super powerful anti-cancer activity. There's something in it called limonene, which is a powerful, powerful nutrient. So that's how we use food for healing. Not just healing, but for medicine. We don't want to have to necessarily heal. This is about prevention. This is about making sure that we have the resilience to prevent disease and dysfunction years before things sort of go downhill, right? That's why it's called functional nutrition, because it's maintaining the function of our wonderful bodies. Do I have any questions from you guys? I'll take a moment to answer some questions. I saw that there was a couple questions about my program, the Functional Nutrition Certification Program. We begin in September. It ends in about May, depending on which level you choose. There's 3 levels. There's an honorary level all the way to advanced certified practitioner. So it sort of depends what your expertise is and what you're after. You can find out more at functionalnutrition.ca. Also, if you go to my website, joshgitalisnutrition.com, there's a little tab at the top that says certification, and if you click that, you can join me in my next information session for the program. Any questions? I have a comment from sorry, I can't read your name, that gingivitis is the modern day scurvy. Yes, absolutely. So, in medicine, they're so interested in black and white, right? Like in specific diseases. And scurvy is the specific disease for vitamin C deficiency. But is there anything happening in between when you're fully diseased due to a deficiency and when you're super, super healthy? And that's what I call subclinical manifestations of certain deficiencies that we might have, or insufficiencies. And gingivitis would be a good example of a vitamin C deficiency. That's not necessarily full-on scurvy, but you're not getting enough vitamin C to really protect your body, to protect your immune system, and to help with essentially the healing of collagen in your body, because we need vitamin C to convert lysine and proline, which are amino acids we get in proteins, into what are called hydroxylysine and hydroxyproline, which are the hydroxylated version, and a cofactor in that is vitamin C. And then we need those hydroxylated lysines and prolines to actually make collagen, our connective tissue, the most common connective tissue in our body. This is something we actually cover in the Therapeutic Nutrition and Supplements in Practice course. Lindsay is asking, is the start date flexible for the Functional Nutrition Certification Program? Yes and no. Well, we have a group starting in September, and we have a group starting in January every year. But in terms of flexibility beyond that, we like to keep it as a group. But if you need different dates, we can talk about that. You can contact our clinic. Do you do one of the nutrition teaching for someone who wants to heal their health through food? Do you do one-on-one nutrition teaching? Okay, thank you for your question. I have a clinical practice here in Toronto. We work with people in person and worldwide. And yes, we do one-on-one consulting. But we also have what's called a functional reset program about to be launched. You're actually the first ones to hear about it. And what it is it's the foundational factors that every single person needs in order for the body to heal. Like we talk about sleep, we talk about food in detail, we talk about drinking water, movement, and all the fundamentals that we need to do before even going to like complicated supplements and superfoods and herbs and things like that. So that's called the Functional Reset Program. It's going to be coming out soon. There's 20 videos included in that. You're going to be working one-on-one with one of our certified functional nutrition coaches. So look out for that. If you want to be notified right away, you can get on my mailing list. Go to joshgitalis.com, and there's an orange bar. You can sign up for our mailing list there. Any other questions? If not, we're going to wrap this up and let you be on your merry way. So I'll take one more question. What are your thoughts on fasting and intermittent fasting? Okay, so this is a pretty big can of worms to open. It's really interesting when people say, what are your thoughts on? Because what we do in the clinic is we do personalized protocols. So for one person, intermittent fasting or fasting is a fantastic thing. For another person, it might not be a great thing. We know that when you fast for 12 hours in a 24-hour period, which we might want to call intermittent fasting, it has profound anti-inflammatory effects and brain-protecting effects. So it's a good practice that most people should do, fasting within a 24-hour period for 12 hours, and also making sure 3 of those hours are before bed. So if you have dinner at 7 o'clock, finish dinner at 7 o'clock, you shouldn't be eating until you go to bed at 10 o'clock. And there's really fantastic benefits from that. Sometimes fasting for other reasons have really great benefits, but I'm not going to go into that today because that is a big can of worms to get into. So with that, I want to thank you all so much for joining me. I really appreciate you coming out for this live video. And if you did miss any parts of it, there will be a recording up on my Facebook page for you to view at your leisure. We did talk about a whole bunch of functional foods: garlic, tomatoes, papaya, specifically the seeds, turmeric, prunes, and limes. And we talked about the benefits of those. So if you want to catch any of that, if you want to see what we spoke about today, because you came in a little bit late, you can go check that again. Again, thanks a lot so much for joining me. Have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you all very, very soon. Take care.